evening and welcome to the Sports Panel where we analyse sport injuries and debunk sport myths with our leading experts.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
I'm your host Jojo.
Okay.
And I'll be guiding you through analysis today. We are live from Adelaide City. Joining me from our panel today is our sports biomechanist, Miss VJ. Good evening, Miss VJ.
Good evening.
We also have Dr. Ijaz joining us later on the show. Now, today's injury has caused an outrage over the internet with several tweets trending across social media in response to fan favourite Joe Piper's injury. Many are wondering whether his career is on the line after Joe Piper was slammed to the ground by Dan White at last night's UFC final. Viewers be advised that this video may contain graphic image.
You see he's with it. It's just a freak thing. His arm popped out. You'll see here. It dislocates. He's going to help. And that's the last time we're going to show that.
We're only showing it once. That's the finish.
That video appeared to look quite painful. As you can see, we even have a snapshot of the injury right here. And to my opinion, that looks very painful. What's your say on this, Miss BJ?
Indeed, it appears to look quite painful, Jojo. Let's have a quick anatomy lesson. Reference to the video, the commentator stated earlier, his arm popped out and he dislocated his elbow. Before interpreting the video, I will briefly explain the two types of dislocation, which are posterior dislocation, which is when the ulna is pushed backwards, posterior to the distal humerus head, and it is referred to as posterior dislocation of the elbow. And there is also anterior dislocation, which is when the ulna is pushed forward away from the condyles, and is referred to as anterior dislocation. Based upon my understanding and interpretation of the injury, in the video it appears to be outstretched, where the force is directed towards the back of the elbow joints. This can cause dislocation of the humeral ulnar joints. Moreover, it is thought not to be anterior dislocation because the elbow has to be in a flexed position and there is direct force operating from the posterior aspect of the joints.
Orthopedic surgeon Dr. Ijaz joining us from Adelaide Hospital. Good evening, Dr. Ijaz.
Good evening, Jojo. Thanks for having me here.
Ijaz, we're looking forward to hearing your expertise on Piper's apparent dislocation. But what the viewers are wondering is, what effect does this injury have on blood supply, and in reference to pain and sensation? What is Piper going through when he said ow? And can you please explain to us so that we may get a better understanding before giving us your recommended diagnosis?
Briefly explain some of the anatomical regions, including the muscles, nerves, and arteries that passes through the elbow joints. This will give the listener a better understanding of the whole scenario that have happened. We first start with the muscle. In our upper limbs, we have an anterior compartment and we have got a posterior compartment. The anterior compartment, it includes our bicep brachii, as you can see, it includes brachialis and brachioradialis and our pronator teres. And for the posterior compartments, we have got our tricep muscles and we have got the iliac muscles. We start with the bicep brachii, its insertion and its origin. From our scapula, which is the supraglenoid tubercle, and which is the long head of the bicep, and we have got our coracoid process with the short head of the bicep, which is more radial to the body, and where they insert into the radial tuberosities. Now we will go for the other anterior compartment muscles, and it includes our brachialis muscle. So the brachialis muscle, it originates from the distal part of our humerus, and it inserts into the coronal process of our ulna. Whereas our brachioradialis, it originates from the lateral supracortical regions of the humerus, and it inserts into the radial storage process, which is a distal end of the radius. So now we go with the posterior compartment muscles, and one of the muscles that include it is the tricep muscles, which is three-headed muscles. So we have got the long head, which originates from the infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. Then we have the lateral head, which originates from upper but posterior part of the humerus. And then we have got medial head of the tricep, which originates from the part of the humerus, which is posterior. And all of them, they insert into olecranon process of the ulna. So another posterior compartment muscle, it is our echinus. So it originates from the lateral epicondyles of the humerus, and it inserts to the lateral side of olecranon process. So for the stability of the humeral joints or our elbow joint, we have two main ligaments. We have got ulnar collateral ligaments, which is on the medial side, and we have got lateral collateral ligaments, or we also call it radial collateral ligaments. So they provide further stability to the joint, and it helps the ulnar and radius to articulate with the humerus. So now we will talk about the nerves of the upper limb, and we call it brachial plexuses. So it has 5 main branches. We have got musculocutaneous nerves, we have got axillary nerves, we have got median nerves, radial nerves, and ulnar nerve, and they all have different nerve roots. But only 3 of the brachial plexus nerves are important because those are the only nerves that passes through our elbow joints. One thing is to remember that anything that innervates the elbow or passes through the elbow, that will be affected during an injury. But the median nerve anatomy, it has a nerve root of C5 to T1 and runs lateral to our bicep brachii. It runs down the anteromedial aspects of the elbow through the interosseous membrane and terminates at the palmar region of the hand. So now we will talk about the arteries of the upper limb. So we have got axillary artery, which supplies blood to our pectoral girdles, and when it runs down into our humerus, then it becomes brachial artery. The brachial artery, when it reaches our elbow joints, is a specific place. We call it cubital fossa. It bifurcates into radial artery and ulnar artery. So now we have got radial nerve. The radial nerve has the same nerve roots as the median nerve, which is C5 to T1. It runs posterior laterally through the radial groove we have, which is posterior to our humerus, and it enters our elbow joints at the lateral side, and it runs down through the radius to our wrist and the fingers laterally. So now we will come to the final nerve, which passes through the elbow joints, and we call it the ulnar nerve. It has a nerve root of C8 and T1. So it runs posteromedially to our humerus. When it enters our forearm, it runs anteriorly to the ulnar, and it terminates at digit 4 and 5 of the finger.
From this, we can tell how complicated this single injury is. The original commentary states that his arm popped out and he's dislocated his elbow. We both know there is much complexity to all this. So with your expertise, Dr. Ijaz, what would be your recommended diagnosis for this injury?
That's true.
Since we now know that it is simple posterior dislocation of the elbow, there could be potential injuries to a number of structures like the elbow joints. The medial collateral ligaments and the lateral collateral ligaments could be potentially injured in this case. The lateral collateral ligament is often disrupted when the elbow dislocation occurs, whereas the medial collateral ligament is the last soft tissues that could be injured as the ulna is displaced. Oftentimes, the pronator talus and also the brachioradialis are injured as well. So the anterior compartment of the elbow, it encompasses the brachial artery, the ulnar nerve, and the median nerve. These structures are particularly vulnerable to the injuries because the anterior compartment is often disrupted during posterior dislocation. So the ulnar artery may become entrapped as it moves posterior to the medial epicondyle, whereas the brachial artery and the median nerve travel close to one another, and injuries are seen in both of these structures simultaneously.
Thank you, Doctor. And that is it for analysis today. Hope you've all learned from our leading experts on our upper body injury today, and we wish the best of luck to Mr. Piper on his recovery. Host, Jojo, and on behalf of the panel, we hope to see you again at 6 p.m. tomorrow.